has been the introduction of the two-pot retirement system.
Yeah.
If you could just elaborate for us as to what the two-pot system is and what has been the impact of it, as I would imagine your clients and many other members of pension funds in South Africa are actually withdrawing their pension savings as a result of the two-pot system, and what are its long-term effects on retirement savings. If you could just maybe start by unpacking what is this whole two-pot system is all about and its impact on your people, on your members.
Yeah, that's a very loaded question. So what I'll do is I'll try to answer it in 3 parts. So maybe let's start with the changes that have been happening in the retirement system. So our retirement industry has been going through changes from 2010 as an example. So we saw like a harmonization of provident funds and pension funds, making sure that it lessens the complexity of the retirement system. Because when you find someone who's a member of a provident fund and you find someone who's a member of a pension fund, their understanding and the treatment of their benefits is different, and that creates complexity when it comes to member education. So National Treasury has been at the forefront in making sure that our members just have one source of information when it comes to the treatment of their pension funds and the rules governing the pension funds. So this has been 14 years in waiting. But I think what fast-tracked the process is obviously the COVID pandemic, because many people find themselves in a position where they were retrenched, were out of jobs, some lost houses, some their policies lapsed because they couldn't pay them, but they still had access to a pension pot. They didn't have access to a pension pot, but their pension benefits that have saved throughout their working lives, but they were unable to dip into those pension funds, especially when they are still employed. Because one of many ways for you to access a pension fund is through resignation or retirement, right? So not many people are willing to resign.
Or death.
Or death as well. Yeah, you're right. So not many people were willing to resign during that period. So they find themselves in a huge predicament where they had money saved, but they couldn't access it, right? So National Treasury has been consulting with industry players on how the two-pot system should be structured, or how can you create a system where our employees can have access to their pension funds. But keep in mind that we should create financial security for them at retirement, because 100% access is not really ideal for any economy, right? And on a personal level, if you're going to deplete your pension savings before retirement, it creates problems for you in the future, because that will probably be your only source of income when you retire, assuming you don't have any other alternative income sources, right? So last year, then we saw the implementation of the two-pot retirement system, right? There was still a lot of misconception on how the system works, and I believe there still is a lot that needs to be done. And I say that based on the work we've been doing on the ground, when we meet with various institutions and having employees tell us how the system works, so I think a lot of stakeholder education is still required, because they have a lot of influence on the decisions that are being made by the members on exit or on retirement or on retrenchment. So naturally, what we should have is a system where there is a benefit counselor, meaning that before you exit the system or before you withdraw from the two-pot system, it's ideal that you sit with someone who will counsel you on your benefits and just the implications of that decision, right?
So essentially, two-pot, if maybe we say it in isiZulu, amapoto amabili.
There are actually 3.
Oh,
it's not 2.
Oh, so it's no longer 2.
There's 3
So it's
pots.
3 pots. So one pot you can't access. That's the money you are saving until you retire. You reach 65 if you are a man, you reach 60 if you are a woman, and then you can access it. The second pot is the one which you can then save on a monthly basis and then access on an annual basis. So what is the third pot?
Okay. So there's 3 pots. I think for the ease of understanding, then it was made 2-pot. by these 3 pots. So let's explain how these 3 pots came to be, right? So the system was implemented on the 1st of September 2025.
2024.
2024, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. So there were savings that you would have made to your pension fund prior to that, right? So that is one pot,
Okay.
right? So that pot is referred to as the vested pot, right? So when the first
It's like all your accumulative
savings up
to that-
until 31st August, that's
2024.
2024.
Okay.
That's one.
It's called the vested pot.
That's pot number 1.
Pot number 1. All right.
Right.
Okay.
Right. From that vested pot, then based on the 2-pot system, a portion of that was moved to your savings pot. Right. So that pot is the one where most people,
Which is 30,000
yeah,
rand.
right. So that's
Or is
the
it
pot.
30% of whatever?
It's a third of what you had, but it can't be less, can't be more than 30,000. So let's make an example, right? Example, let's say I have 1 million rands in savings,
Okay.
right? A portion of that was moved to the savings pot, but as a percentage, that percentage was probably 150,000.
Yeah.
But the rule says it can't be 150,000. The maximum
It can't be more than 30.
Yeah, the rule says it can't be
30,000.
150,000. It can only be 30,000 that gets moved over to this pot.
Okay.
So, as an example, if you had 1 million rands, you have 970,000 left in the vested pot, which
They
is
move
pot number 1.
30,000.
They move 30,000
Yeah.
to what is called a savings pot.
Yeah.
So when the system opened on the 1st of September, you had 2 pots. Where does the 3rd pot come to be now? The
And then
contributions.
from the 1st of September 2024, you could then take this 30,000
Yes.
in its entirety
Cash.
if you choose to do
Yes,
so.
if you
all right?
choose to do so.
Okay.
Then it gets taxed at your marginal tax rate. So your marginal tax rate is actually the rate of tax at which you pay your
Yes.
pays you earn.
Which is it roughly 9,000? So
It depends.
Yeah.
Some guys could be at 45% tax rate. Some guys at 18% tax rate.
so what's the
So-
difference between the two?
The higher your tax bracket,
Or the higher, or
then
depending on how much you
yeah,
earn.
how much you earn.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's guided by that. It's not guided by the tax tables.
Okay.
So it's important that we explain that there's a difference between pay as you earn and the retirement or resignation tax tables. In this instance, we're using pay as you earn, right, which is informed by how much you pay on tax on a monthly basis.
So it becomes then a benefit to your salary.
It could be like a bonus.
A bonus. Oh,
Yeah, because your bonus will then be taxed at your marginal tax rate. So that was pot number 2, right? So now let's assume that on the 1st of September, I'm a member of a pension fund and I'm contributing like 1,000 rands, right? So a third of that will go into the savings pot, which is pot number 2 in this instance in our explanation, right? That's a pot that held the 30,000.
Okay.
Irrespective if you withdrew the 30,000 or not.
Or not.
So from 1,000 rand that you contribute, right, about 333 rands will now go to this pot, right?
Then the 670
creates a
was to the
retirement,
vested.
retirement savings pot.
Okay.
So that's the pot that you preserve until
They
retirement.
retire.